Steeler Nation, we are back with another episode of the Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy. I am Jay York Football. This is Mic'd Up Sports One. Before we get to our very special guests, we want to just give a shout out to our sponsorship with DraftKings. We're back with another week of football, and DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers. Every single game day, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Throw $5 down on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away an instant winner. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of two new offers every game day this September. It's football season, man. It's here. So put some money in your pocket. I know I got a few of my family members to sign up. So, hopefully I'll get some nice Christmas gifts. Mike?
It's going so fast. It's already about to be a month in. I mean, that's impossible. I feel like we just kicked off in Kansas City 4 days ago. But yeah. Steelers -3 in Houston this weekend. A little bit of a smelly line, some would say, but Houston with a huge win over the Jaguars last weekend. They're playing good football. Listen, football is more fun when you're in the action. Download the app now. Sign up with code SICKSPORTS. That's the most important thing. Sick Sports. New customers can bet just $5. That's it. $5. So, save your money on bubblegum and deposit it into DraftKings. You get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with code SICKSPORTS. The crown is yours, Jordan. Go ahead, take it away. Tell us about one more. Why not?
Yeah, so we do the Jaylen Warren show every Tuesday, and we're excited about this sponsorship. It's where I get my tires at. It's where Jaylen gets all his custom work done. You can ask him yourself. Still City Wheelhouse, where the bar is set. Mike has it on his shirt. Tires for all cars and trucks can now be purchased online at Still City Wheelhouse. Financing is available. John and John over there doing great things. I mean, it's Pittsburgh West Coast Customs. It's just an awesome atmosphere. But speaking of awesome people, we have a very special guest to break down not only the Steelers, the AFC North, and more. So, Sammy, let's get to it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Harris Smith shields. Flacco, Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
It is a special guest indeed. You can hear her, of course, on CBS Sports, CBS on Sundays, formerly NFL Network. Of course, she has covered all the bases. That's one way to put it. We're excited to bring her on the Sick Podcast Steelers today and talk about football, like you said, Jordan. It is none other than Aditi Kinkhabwala. Aditi, hello, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Of course, thanks for jumping on with us. No, you're good.
I'm just hearing some footsteps. I apologize.
Well, you have
no better way to start anything. Oh boy,
you have mommy in your Twitter bio. So is that what's going on back there a little bit?
You want to say hi?
There you go. See, look, we got a 2-for-1.
You don't even let me get my first sentence out, and you have to interrupt. Is that how that goes?
What's her name?
Live? Are we editing? What's your name? What's your name? Oh, you're going to be shy? Then you need to go.
The whole show.
Yeah, you know what? She behaves like this because she was born in Cleveland.
Is she ready to break down the Browns for us?
Right there. What was that? Mike, what was that?
Is she ready to break down the Browns for us?
She could. Who's your favorite football team?
No. Well, our Steelers Nation, I'm sure, can forgive her because she's so darn cute.
Think about her Steelers-loving father, who is a season ticket holder, sat on the poor season ticket wait list for 21 years just so he could take his children to these games. And this is what this child says. Poor guy. All right. Mommy has to go back to work.
You have one of those split jerseys where like half is Browns, half is Steelers. Like, is that like...
Oh, you don't know the story of my family? It's even worse than that. You'll probably hit dump.dead as soon as I tell you this. When my son, so the real reason that I know this isn't what you wanted to talk about, but you led me down this path. My husband put himself on the Steelers season ticket wait list when he was 10 years old. 21 years later, the number comes up. we are about to buy a house and we're about to have our first child, our son. And remember, I'm from Jersey. And so all I see is this $20,000 PSL. And I say to him, can we put this off a year or two? And he, of course, says, no way. So we get these tickets and he gets his son. And this is why he put himself on this list so that he could take his son to these Steelers games. When Nico turns 2, I bought him a Bills shirt from the clearance rack at Old Navy.
Oh, no.
47 cents. Okay. Because it was a clearance rack and he's 2 years old and 2-year-old kids mess up their clothes all the time. So I buy him this Bills shirt. And for whatever reason, he decides it's his favorite shirt. Same year, mommy gets sent to Buffalo to cover the draft. Josh Allen is drafted. Guess what the kid decides is his favorite team? To this day, 6 years later, Bills hat every single day. Every year he gets all the new Bills hats from a friend of mine at New Era and my poor husband. That's all I'll say. My poor husband.
I feel like that's how it always starts. I used to get.
This is why we should have had a third baby. We should have had a third baby so Matt could get the one that he needed.
You never know.
Right,
Some convert. I convert.
It's the best when people tell me that you root against the Steelers. First of all, my job is to be unbiased and impartial. Second of all, I own Steelers season tickets. It's better for me the better they are because then they're a more valuable asset. And my husband is nicer to me when the Steelers win.
Steelers Nation, you heard it here first.
On the Steeler Crazy Sick podcast, Aditi, I think our viewers are now.
You weren't expecting the whole marriage component to this, right? But there you go.
Anything goes. It's called the Steelers Crazy podcast for a reason. So.
Listen, you started talking about the Steelers and your daughter picked up some scissors. She was ready to cut us out right away. So she is a big-time Browns fan. I could tell. I was a little nervous for you. I saw some blue scissors across the screen.
Yeah.
It's so cute.
As soon as we're not talking about the Browns, she does get upset.
That is so cute.
Well, we appreciate her. She's a preschooler. She came home from school early today. Oh, well. Okay.
We certainly forgive her. It's adding an extra element to the show that we, quite frankly, appreciate. So it is, it's awesome, no question about it. But let's dive into that AFC North. Why not? We've already talked about it a little bit here. You know what I got to start with? TJ Watt wins Defensive Player of the Month. Okay,
Shocker,
there's this age-old, the craziest debate in football in Steelerland. Myles Garrett v. TJ Watt. I'm not asking you to pick anybody, but can you comment on just the uproar of fans on both sides of the state there, I guess, if you will?
I've said this actually on multiple Cleveland shows this week, and I can't remember if I said it on Pittsburgh radio or not. The truth is that TJ makes the money play. TJ is now, does Myles Garrett affect the game? Absolutely. I was just on the sideline for Titans-Browns where Myles Garrett had 3.5 sacks, forced a fumble, single-handedly shut down the momentum that the Titans had going into the half. He is a freak. He wreaks havoc. Of course, he affects the game. But TJ Watt has a knack for coming up with the big play at the most important moment. And he has done this for years. It's when the Steelers offense can't do anything and the Steelers need defensive touchdowns. TJ Watt is a part of it. TJ Watt is right now playing as well as anybody can. And look, I think Myles Garrett is amazing. I think Myles Garrett in this Jim Schwartz defense is going to do things that you still haven't even seen him do. Myles Garrett at this point of his career is playing with a different level of confidence. And the truth of the matter is he still cannot compare or cannot lay claim to being better than TJ until he makes those money plays that TJ does. Those splash plays, as Mike Tomlin calls them. Because if we go back to that Monday night game, the truth of the matter is that Monday night Browns-Steelers game, the Browns defense for the entire game, you could argue had a better defensive 60-minute effort. Mm-hmm. But the Steelers defense came up with the plays that mattered. They came up with plays that affected the scoreboard.
Well, yes, of course, we've established that you have been covering the AFC North for a long time and have certainly been somebody that's engaged with both the Browns and Steelers. So let's talk a little bit about the state of the AFC North. Let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're 2-1 after 3 games. Just give us some general takeaways. What's caught your eye?
The defense is playing tremendously well. There's a lot of, as we just discussed when we were talking about TJ Watt, there's a lot of splash playmaking, which is always good. There's a reason that coaches like to tell you that there are 3 phases to the game, and it's not just, yes, I guess in theory, it's the defense's job to stop the offense, but it sure as heck is a bonus if the defense can score or put the offense in better position to try to score itself. So love the way the defense is playing. Don't love the way the offense is playing.
Sure.
I don't know. And I'm a huge Kenny Pickett person. Yeah. It's funny because on my Cruise group thread, someone, I won't name who that is calling the game, made a point of saying, wow, right now CJ Stroud is playing better than Kenny Pickett. Yeah. And somebody else responded, be careful, that's Aditi's boy right there. I love Kenny Pickett. I feel so strongly about the potential for this offense. I just don't love what I'm seeing. And I'm tired of sort of saying the same thing, right? That we just keep seeing the same formations. We keep seeing the same plays out of the same personnel groupings. And part of what's so amazing about the job I get to do is that not only do I stand behind the bench and actually listen to what a quarterback says to a receiver or what an offensive coordinator says to a quarterback, we sit in these production meetings. So I had week 2, the Commanders at the Broncos, and we spent an hour with Sean Payton. I think we were actually in there for an hour and a half, but a full hour was him talking about new ideas and where the ideas come from. And just this morning, he'd gotten this new idea. And then this whole thing about how his goal is to send out personnel groupings that draw a particular defense. Let's say, for example, send out a personnel grouping with a fullback and you're going to get the base defense, but then you run a completely unexpected play. And how you possibly do that. If you're in this personnel, how do you take advantage of that defense? And what is the whole chess match nature of that? It just feels like in the last few years, we haven't seen a lot of that with the Steelers. And you feel like there's enough talent to make that happen. I think there's a lot of talent at the wide receiver position. I love Pat Freiermuth too. I know that the Steelers are saying that it's about execution, and sure, there are some things that are just execution. Everybody knows when the Eagles are going to run the quarterback sneak, and they're still ridiculously successful. They're not trying to fool anybody. I don't know that the Steelers are just there yet, where they can keep running the same exact play out of the same exact formation and still beat everybody.
Yeah, totally fair. It's great that you get to sit in on those meetings, of course, with Coach Sean Payton. I'll say maybe he should have been focusing a little bit more on the defensive side, but maybe it wasn't you who
it was me. This was 2 weeks ago against the Commanders. And they did actually start hot. They were up 21-3 before they fell apart. So
you were the good luck charm then, of course.
They fell apart. So I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say he is the be all end all, but the man does have a Super Bowl ring. And I'm trying to say that this is just sometimes how certain people talk about offense. That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's move on to another AFC North team, a team that surprisingly lost this past weekend to the Indianapolis Colts. Somehow the Ravens always find their injury list looking like a CVS receipt in week 3 or 4. Briefly touch on them. What's going on in Baltimore?
They're snake bit, and I had them week 1. We had the Ravens Texans week 1, and there just was such a strong feeling about what the defense could do, about Odafe Owe, who had the most tremendous camp, David Ojabo, who of course was coming off that awful injury a year ago, and how much potential they felt that pass rush had. Then the back end they felt really, really good about, and Kyle Hamilton wasn't going to have to play out of position. But then of course Marcus Williams gets hurt week 1, and there's a new offense. Lamar Jackson is more engaged and invested and involved in the offense than at any time since I've known him, and I've covered him since he was a rookie. I like the way John Harbaugh went about finding Todd Monken. He sat here and he said, there's so much right now focus on that McVay, Shanahan. It's really the Mike Shanahan coaching tree. And all of these guys, you've got obviously Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur and Bobby Slowick, who's the Texans offensive coordinator. And, Mike McDaniel, we can keep going. But John said, even though that's sort of like the hot thing right now, he looked at Lamar and thought, Lamar's not really a system quarterback. Lamar isn't a guy that you can put in a box. So then he starts thinking about who's a guy that he has respect for, who's run a variety of different things and isn't necessarily wedded to a scheme. And he didn't even know Todd Monken, but he was like, that's the guy that I admire. Here's a funny little story. So the way he got to Todd Monken is that Todd Monken was the offensive coordinator at Georgia at the time. Tom Crean, who's John Harbaugh's brother-in-law, was the head basketball coach. Wow. So John Harbaugh calls his sister Joni and says, hey, do you think you can call Todd Monken's wife and see if Monken would be interested in interviewing for this job? So Joni Harbaugh calls Terry Monken, Todd Monken. I mean, I'm just losing this. Anyway, it's this crazy story. It's wonderful, but it shows that this is a head coach who's willing to kind of turn over every rock to think who's going to best match and elevate the players that I have. So there's a lot of reasons to feel bullish. You feel like Greg Roman did good things with this offense, but they kind of hit a ceiling. So now they've gone and they've gotten someone else to help elevate further. Lamar is healthy. Lamar is engaged and invested. All of that is great. Lamar has better pass catchers than he's perhaps ever had in his tenure at the Ravens. Forget perhaps, than he's ever had in his tenure with the Ravens. Zay Flowers is the real deal. So all of this you're feeling so good about, and then they just keep getting hurt. I mean, it's the most snake but worst luck team ever. And so it's hard to tell. But again, John Harbaugh is like Mike Tomlin. His teams are always in it. Even 2 years ago, if you remember at the end of the season, the Ravens had like half a roster. They didn't even have people. Remember that game that they played in Pittsburgh where at the very end of the game, they went for two instead of kicking the tie, and and TJ Watt, Lamar Andrews throws to Mark Andrews, and TJ Watt gets basically a fingertip on it and knocks the ball away, making a great play, obviously. But everyone says, like, John Harbaugh is the best kicker ever. Why didn't he just kick to go into overtime? Because he didn't have a single corner. He had no healthy corners. So his feeling was, my best chance to win is not by playing an extra 15 minutes. It's by trying to win right here, right now with this one play. So anyway, that season, if you remember, they almost won there. Did they upset the Packers, or they almost upset the Packers? They should have upset the Rams. They went down to the wire against the Steelers. I mean, they're always in it. Yeah. And so, again, but it's still early. We're 3 weeks into the season. So it's hard to like make a grand statement on anyone.
Big Ben probably doesn't make the playoffs in his final year if Mark Andrews hauls that in. I remember his face on the sideline, put his hands to his head and said, like, oh my goodness. So that's a moment, of course, that I'll remember for a long, long time. Before I kick it to Jordan, talk a little bit more Steelers. Tell me about the Cincinnati Bengals. Got a huge win this past Monday night. Seemed like a little bit of a do-or-die game there. You don't want to fall to 0-3 in an incredibly competitive AFC. What have you heard about Joe Burrow? Is he healthy?
I mean, he's definitely not 100%, and you could see that. I don't concern myself as much with the Bengals starting slower because they did last year too. Joe Burrow missed the entire training camp with the appendicitis. They were 0-2, and
we beat him in overtime.
Right,
well, that was week 2 years ago. Yeah, week 1.
So, they have almost all of their pieces back. Their coaching staff is intact. They already proved last year that they're not necessarily, bitten by the hangover bug or by overconfidence. Like that might be something that the Jaguars are facing right now. That hasn't been the Bengals. Credit to Zach Taylor and his staff. So it's hard to write them off, right? Like they're not playing, let's say, the way the Browns defense is playing right now. They're not necessarily playing the way the Steelers defense is playing, but you write them off at your own peril.
Yeah. It seems like there's so much football play just because I know you do this for a living, so you're constantly every week doing it, but it's just, it is crazy that it's like we're only 3 games in and it's like, it feels like the half of the season it just goes by so fast. The NFL has the most storyline, I think, out of any professional sport. simply because that, there's only a certain amount of games. It's not like, NBA or MLB where there's a ton of games. But before I jump into some Steeler questions, I just want to give a special thanks to another sponsorship that we have with Brushes and Beans Cafe. Caffeinate and create at Brushes and Beans Cafe. Visit them at 4550 William Penn Highway in Murraysville. Go see Mark over there. Just tell him, get the JY special, double shot of espresso. Just get you going, go do your honey to-do list, your shopping list, before the kickoff on Sunday. Stop by Brushes and Beans. There's a guy in Pittsburgh named Matt Canada. He every week he goes from the most hated to the most beloved. Just kind of talk about, after last week's performance, you can't really, say anything, bad about it because they're going in the right direction. But just touch on, the whole Matt Canada saga.
I mean, the Steelers made a decision to bring him back, and so here he is. And you said it. You hope that the offense is indeed going to get more diverse and more varied and less predictable and do some more things. I mean, it was nice that they had Kenny out on the move a little bit more. He doesn't take to interior pressure all that much, all that well. He is athletic, so why not take advantage of that? They needed to run the ball better. They did run the ball better. You play who's on the schedule. So we can sit here and say, oh, well, the Raiders defense isn't nearly as good as the first two defenses they faced, but you still have to beat whoever's lined up opposite you.
Yeah. And
so the Texans defense is sound. They don't make mistakes. I think Will Anderson is going to be a superstar. I love D'Amico Ryans. I covered him as a player when he was with the Eagles.
Yeah.
When we saw them week one, Jalen Petrie unfortunately got hurt, and he, I believe, is a star and a great young leader. He should be back. The Texans keep things in front of them. They don't make mistakes. They're not necessarily that splashy, but they are disciplined. And D'Amico is a really good coach.
Yeah, this game scares me. Like, honestly, I just think that they're playing with a lot of urgency right now. And I hope that the Steelers aren't sleeping on him, but I guess we'll see this Sunday. D'Amico, I was really happy when he got the head coaching job over there.
CJ is playing well. CJ is playing with a lot of confidence there. Again, Bobby Slowick is a very, very talented young coach who, I mean, I've known him for a dozen years. I was covering Washington when he was on that staff there, and he's been on both sides of the ball. He has a coaching pedigree, coaching family. He's got a great way of communicating with CJ, of empowering him. I mean, I was there in CJ's debut, right? 3 weeks ago, and you could actually see on the field when he started getting more confidence and when it started coming in. There was a point where D'Amico came over on the sideline and just sort of held CJ's head and said, no matter what, just keep playing, just keep playing. And it was like, let all the jitters, let all the rookiness, whatever, just keep playing. And he really did. It's very, very impressive what he's doing. And yes, TJ is the defensive player of the month. CJ is the offensive rookie of the month, right? So it's nice to see the Texans turn things around. It's nice to see that excitement. When I was there last year, it felt like the fan base was very apathetic. They were sort of over things, but now there's a renewed excitement to it all. And certainly JJ Watt being honored will bring some energy to the building.
Yeah. So before I throw it over to Mike, you kind of, talked about it before. I know he's one of your favorites, Kenny Pickett. What do you really think the ceiling is for Kenny Pickett? And maybe just like this season, like what would be a successful season for Kenny Pickett?
Improvement upon a year ago? I don't,
for me, it's making it to the playoffs and getting a playoff win. But football's a team sport, so it's he could play average and the defense can step up like they've been this season. That's really where I'm at with the.
I mean, you're right, Jordan, because I just said that a little bit earlier. It's like Eric Bieniemy likes to say, it's not about the numbers, it's about the letters. It doesn't really matter if you throw for 300 if you get the W. No. And like that Monday night game, the offense was putrid. But they got a W. And at the end of the season, that W matters a whole heck of a lot more than the -7 yards that they had in the fourth quarter.
You don't get style points in the NFL. Like, yeah, obviously we want to win 41-0 and have Taylor Swift cheering us on, but unfortunately that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, and that Dolphins 70-point game, it still only counts as one win.
I thought that there was a glitch when I seen that on the bottom line at CBS. When I was watching, I had to like almost restart my TV. I'm like, is this like a Madden game? Like, what is going on? But again, not to like get sidetracked, but Tua is, I really hope he stays healthy.
But that's another example of great coaching, right? Yes, and it's that same tree, Mike McDaniel. So Tua was a mess the year before. And that staff didn't necessarily speak to him or believe in him. They were yanking him in and out. And I had a report from the sideline last year that went viral where he openly admitted that he was looking in the mirror. I asked him, like, did you ever doubt if you could actually do this? And he said there were many times where he looked in the mirror and he said, do I suck? And it was Mike McDaniel rebuilding him, showing him what he really believed was elite, and then catering to what he does best. And then obviously the concussions, the head injuries last year derailed a few things, but he was playing at an MVP level. And he's only building off of that. Once again, great coaching, getting the most out of a young quarterback. It's a great example of that. And I know, I remember when I covered Rutgers and Greg Schiano, this is the first time around that Greg Schiano was the head coach there. And there was some sort of conversation about running up the score and if that was classless. And his response was, we could always just tackle them. And it's sort of like, what do you expect him to do? Just take knees for a whole half?
Yeah.
Like, is the team just supposed to go knee, knee, knee? Like, and you're playing backups. Those guys, they have an opportunity to play in the National Football League and they have an opportunity to get an NFL touchdown. You expect them to like not try?
Yeah.
So I don't have an issue. No. I think that if you don't want someone to score that much, then stop them.
I think they should have gone for 100. I mean, at that point, you put up 70. What's another 30?
Yeah, they could have. To be honest with you, if you don't want them dancing in the end zone, don't let them in the end zone. I agree. Aditi, where are you at this weekend?
I'm actually, you know what? I have the weekend off. It's my crew. My crew has the Steelers Texans game, but I share the season with the lovely Amanda Renner, who is actually a Pittsburgh native. And so she will be on the sideline of the Steelers Texans game. Awesome. And I will be watching with my son.
Fantastic. Well, we will miss you, but everybody got hopefully their dose of Aditi and the Steelers on the Sick Podcast. Steelers.
Really appreciate it.
And not just you, but your star of a daughter. So
she passed out. She passed out on my, do you want to see this?
Hopefully not with the scissors.
No, not with the scissors.
Wow.
That's going to be us right after the show. Aditi, you're the best for doing this. Thank you.
All right. I'm so sorry about that interruption.
No, don't apologize. We really appreciate your time and keep up the great work. You're killing it. We love it.
All right. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
No problem.
Thanks, Aditi.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's always cool to, someone who's there every week, just breaking it down, just like, the relationships that she has and just, she knows the AFC North inside and out. We forgive her for being a Browns fan, of course. But yeah, I mean, as far as the Texans this week, I think that this is, again, I know last week I picked us to lose, so maybe I should pick us to lose again and will win. But I think that the Steelers have a little momentum right now. And although this game does scare me, I think that Kenny Pickett is going to keep, I'm another 2 touchdowns. I think they get George Pickens a little more involved. Our guy, Jaylen Warren, leading yards after catch in the NFL. Love to see it. I think the offense is going to start clicking. The defense is there. Levi Wallace, Patrick Peterson, those guys really stepped up. Levi Wallace, especially because he was having a couple, first 2 games, couple rough showings. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited. It's a long season. I just feel like it's like a roller coaster. It's like, you start off with that blowout loss to the 49ers and you're like hanging your head. But, us as, analysts and breaking down the game, we like to keep the faith. But here on the Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy, we do like to keep it realistic and unbiased. So we appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. Mike?
I'm going to take the Steelers to win. I know I teased it on Tuesday, but that line is smelling, -3. Certainly something that should raise eyebrows around the NFL world. I would not be shocked if they lose. You know how the Steelers are. A couple big wins, and then you go to a place like Houston where you should win, and sometimes the opposite result happens. So at the end of the day, I'm going to take the Steelers by 2. Texans are going to cover. That's why it's such a fishy line. I'm going to go somewhere along the lines of 23-21 Steelers win. Wow. And before we get out of here, I do want to let you guys know.
Here, I'll do the honors this time. Yins is the #1 sports brand for Pittsburgh sports. Finally, one brand to rep all black and gold. Make sure you use our code SICK15. That's shopyins.com with 2 Z's. Taylor over there doing great things.
Yes, sir.
Beautiful you see the hat right there. It stands for York. It stands for Yins. We're one big family over here at the Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy. Aditi, we thank you for hanging out with us. Mike, as always, another great episode. Go Steelers, breaking down the AFC North like no others. But remember who the Kings are. Sammy, until next time, we out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.